Hello, good morning, welcome to a new yoga class. So today we're going to be looking at posture, alignment and exercises to strengthen and rebalance the wrists, especially at the minute where a lot of people are spending a lot of time on the computers. The wrists can actually feel painful when you're coming into any of the arm balances, even plank or down dog, upward dog, because of the extension that the wrist is going through, flexion. And so we're just going to have a look at how to maintain neutral hands in some of our postures and just moving the hands in different directions so you can get a feel for the different movements of the wrists, and also just to allow the muscles to move in a different direction to what they usually would. So you will need a yoga strap for this, but just put it to one side for now. We're going to start by looking at posture in your basic standing position, which is mountain pose. So you want to start off with the feet. You want your feet directly under the hips, hip width apart, and you really want to spread the toes and really plant the feet into the ground. So really pushing through all four corners of the feet to get the stability. You want to be working through the legs without locking the knees, but your kneecaps should be pulled up slightly so that your legs are completely engaged. Back nice and straight. Shoulders should be over the hips. You don't want your shoulders coming forward as you're standing in this. You also don't want to be leaning too far back. You want your shoulders to be directly over your hips. Nice neutral spine. And we can have a look at this by rounding the spine forwards and then opening the chest and pulling the shoulders back, and just doing this 3 times in total. And then finding that midway position where your shoulders sit nicely over the hips. And the next thing is the head. So you want to keep the neck nice and long. You don't want the head falling forwards so that you're having to look up with your eyes. And you don't want your head falling back slightly. You don't want to be pulling the head back or even tilting it back. You want it to be sitting nicely on the shoulders, imagining that there's a string coming from the crown of the head, pulling upwards, keeping that head nice and balanced. And again, we're just going to exhale the head forwards. Inhale the head back to look up to the ceiling. Another 2 times. Making sure that the head is the only thing that's moving while you're doing this. And then bringing the head back to neutral, eyes looking forwards, picking a point right in front of you, the same height as your eyes themselves. And the arms should just be down the sides of the body gently, fingers pointing towards the floor, fingers engaged. So you should feel the energy coming up through the feet and down through the fingers. And this is Tadasana, or mountain pose. You should be aware of your body at all times in this pose. Just taking a couple of breaths here. Really concentrating on keeping the position. And then we're going to look at arm movement with different movements of the wrists, and also keeping the wrists in neutral but allowing moving the arms whilst keeping the wrists in neutral. So first of all, let's just warm our shoulders up. So just do 5 shoulder rolls backwards, and then 5 forwards. Bring your arms up to shoulder height, and I want you to make sure that your wrists are in neutral. So the back of your hand along the back of the arm should be in one straight line. If you tilt it up, that's slight extension. If you tilt it down, that's the opposite way. So either of those two ways you're actually using the muscles. We want them in neutral, so we want the muscles to be nice and relaxed, the line to be nice and straight, really reaching through those fingers. And now turn the arms the other way around. Again, making sure that you're in neutral, so your palm and the arm is all in a line. You're not trying to pull the hand down to get your palm flatter or push it up. It should just, your fingers and your arms should be in a line. Turning the arms back the other way and flexing the hands to taking the fingers up towards the ceiling. So you can feel how that's working the wrists there, the difference between that and the neutral wrist. So come back to neutral and then come back up into the flexed palms and then back to neutral, and then we're going to go the other way, so taking the fingers down. So this is one of the directions that we don't tend to move our wrists very often. It's not much call for having your palms flat against the floor or a wall. Bring it back to neutral and folding down. So you might find that this is actually quite difficult to get your fingers to point downwards. And you might find that it really feels like it's working those forearms. And then bringing the hands back to neutral, bringing the arms down for a second. So taking hold of the yoga belt, making sure that you come back into that mountain pose when you come back. And just take the belt onto the hands. So you're just going to hold it with your thumb. And we're just using this to provide a little bit of weight and a little bit of guidance here. So what we're going to do is on an exhale, we're going to lower the arms, aiming to keep those wrists in neutral. So the instinct here is to start tilting your hands towards you to keep as you're pushing into the belt, to keep the belt up, but I want you to focus on keeping those wrists in neutral. So really thinking about what you're doing here. Inhaling back to center, and again exhaling down. Inhale center, and one more. And now we're going to go the opposite way. So we're going to inhale up and then exhale center. And again, you've really got to focus on not bending those wrists. Exhale center. And one more. Bring the arms down for a second. I'm going to take the hands the opposite way around on the belt. So you're just holding it between your thumb and your index finger, bringing the hands back up to neutral, and I just want you to pull the arms apart, so as though you're trying to stretch the belt. Again, focusing on keeping those wrists in neutral, and then release. Exhale and pull. Inhale, release. Let it come down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our hands slightly wider, and again focusing on keeping the wrists in neutral. We're going to pull in opposite directions. So as you saw, my hand automatically wants to come into flexion here. Keep it in neutral. So your hands are staying in line with the arms as they pull in opposite directions. Then bringing it down, going to the opposite side. And one more on each side. So you're just being aware of how your wrists are trying to move and bringing them back into neutral. One one more on this side. And exhaling down. So again, keeping the arms nice and wide. We're now going to go through a little bit of movement which will allow your wrists to move slightly, but you're going to focus on not moving them too much. So trying to keep them in neutral as much as possible, but they will have a little bit of movement. So you're going to inhale the arms up overhead, exhale, and allow the hands to slide along the belt to come down the back. Inhale overhead, and exhale back down to the front. Don't allow yourself too much slack on the band. So when you're coming back over, that should stretch the shoulders. When you're coming back over, you don't want it to be catching on the top of your head like you saw it do on me the first time. You want it to be able to come nicely overhead. So this is working the elbows, the wrists and the shoulders. One more time, inhaling up, exhaling behind. And if you can't quite get over, take your hands wider on the belt, or just hold here and just go as far as you can and then come back. Okay, so you can put your band to one side again now. And just give your arms a little bit of a wriggle. We're going to have a look at Warrior 2. So in Warrior 2, there tends to be an urge for the front wrist to start flexing slightly as you're pushing through the arms. So a lot of people have a tendency, as you start to really reach through the fingertips, to start to flex the hands. We're going to have a look at doing the Warrior without that, so we're really going to focus on the hand posture for this pose. So taking your legs nice and wide, your Warrior base stance, you're going to turn your right foot out to the far wall. Keep your hips facing forwards. So the foot turns out, the hips stay facing forwards. This foot, you can take the heel out backwards ever so slightly, so that when you bend your knee, you can actually push into the back of that foot. So first things here, hands on the hips, and really making sure that you're pushing equally through both feet and that you're pulling the knee back. So you should be able to see your big toe when you look down. So get your base stable before you start in this pose. Really pushing through both feet, the outside edge of this foot, all 4 points on this foot, knee nice and bent, pulling backwards. And then you can inhale your arms to shoulder height. So once you've got your arms at shoulder height, you want to just check that you're not sending the fingertips down or up. You want them to be nice and neutral, fingers aiming to the wall in front of you and behind you. You also want to make sure that your hands are at shoulder height and not on an angle either way, or even both down or both slightly higher up. You want them to be nice and flat and straight. So do take a few moments here just to get that posture right, and then you can look over the right hand and just breathe in here. You'll feel the legs working, and you might feel that your wrists want to start drooping, but don't let them. Really focus on keeping those arms nice and straight from the shoulders right through to the fingertips. Making sure that that bent knee stays pulled back and doesn't start to creep forward. Then on the next inhale, straightening the leg. Exhale the hands down. Then we're going to come to the opposite side. So turning the feet round. Again, making sure you get your nice base, hips forwards, bend the knee, and then making sure that you're pulling that knee back whilst keeping the hips central, pressing down through the outside edge of the back foot, all 4 points on the front foot, knee nicely bent. Breathe in nice and deep in this one. Then inhaling the arms to shoulder height. And again, check in that those fingers are in line with the wrist, that it's one nice straight line from the shoulders to the fingers. And then looking over the left hand. And just making sure that your attention is staying in those wrists and arms. And you're not allowing them to start sagging as your body starts to get a little bit tired. You're really working into the pose at all times. Two more breaths. Then inhale, straighten the leg. Exhale, lower the arms. Coming back to centre. So now we're going to come down onto the mat. And we are going to work with our hand in flexion, because we're going to do a few little side plank routines just to stretch the neck and also strengthen the wrists. If at any point you feel that it's too much on your wrist, you can come down onto your elbow instead, or you can use your fist, you can use your elbow on a block. So listen to your body and work with your body. Okay, so coming down, I'm going to come into side plank. So starting off in plank, coming into side plank on the right hand side. So standard plank position, fingers facing the same way as the head. And what we're going to do is we're just going to tilt the head towards the fingers. And you can, if your balance is a bit off here, you can put your leg down. We're not working the abdominals here, we're looking at the neck stretches. So feel free to have your leg down just to help with the balance. So tilting the head towards the fingers to stretch the outside of the neck, and then tilting the head up to stretch this side of the neck. And then we're going to come down, go back into normal plank. We're then going to turn our hand out to the back of the room, so the hand is now going to be facing the back of our head once we're in side plank. So here especially you might want to bring the leg to the front, because your arm is not used to working this way and keeping your body weight up. But again, we're going to do the same thing, so tilting the head towards the fingers for a breath and then pulling it away for a breath, coming back into standard plank. And then the last one, we're going to have the hand facing towards us as we come into that side plank. So this time definitely have that leg out in front, and again head going towards the fingers and then pulling away from the fingers, and then back into plank. And we're going to do the same on the opposite side. So rolling into the plank, bringing that leg in front for a bit more support, making sure your body's nice and straight, and then dropping the head towards the fingers, pulling the head away from the fingers. And so you should feel a bit of a stretch through the side of the neck and on the shoulder, coming back into the plank. And this is quite intense on the wrists. So the other option for this is you can do it at a wall. So rather than being in plank, you could actually just have your arm against a wall, towards the fingers, towards the ceiling, back to plank. So you could, it's like doing a side plank out a wall. And back to plank. And then just coming down onto your knees. Hover, roll in those wrists. So, as I was saying, you can do it at a wall, where you just have your fingers facing the correct way on the wall, and you move your head towards and away from your fingers as you move the hand round on the wall. That puts less stress and tension through the wrists themselves. So now that we've done that, we're going to come down and we're just going to go into Shavasana, have a quick relaxation. While you're in the relaxation pose, I want you to just feel how the wrists have taken this practice, and just allow the muscles to completely relax, because they have worked quite hard. So resting back of the hands on the floor. Maybe bringing the index finger and the thumb to touch. Don't force the rest of the fingers to be flat though, you want to relax the muscles. Bringing the awareness to the breathing. And breathing into the wrist area to just ease any tension and soothe any slight irritation you may be feeling from working the wrists. As I said, it is very important when doing work with the wrists that you do listen to your body and you do stop when the wrists start to hurt. There shouldn't be any pain, there shouldn't be any tingling, and there certainly shouldn't be any numbness when you do any of these movements and postures. If you feel any of that, you need to stop, you need to take a step back, and you need to rethink how you're going to work that pose, that movement, that posture. And this is the important thing to remember about yoga. It's not about getting into that final posture the exact way that you've seen somebody else do it, or the exact way that it always comes up if you Google the pose. It's about getting yourself into as close a variation of the pose as is possible and comfortable in your own body. And that might mean that you have to use some props. You have to have your feet in a slightly different place. You have to use your arms in a slightly different way. But yoga is about you and your body. There is no perfect pose. Every person's body will need a slight twist to the poses for the body to sit into it nicely. And then just coming onto the side, slowly coming up to sit. And we're just going to finish the class with a little bit of a prayer pause. Standard prayer pause has the hands at full flexion. However, if you are suffering with your wrists, another option is to keep the elbows down and bring your hands to the nose or to the forehead. And namaste. About your practice. And thank you for joining me. Hope that has been useful.